Now, for more on the bushfire crisis, joining me on the line is Helen Haines, the independent federal member for Indi in Victoria's northeast. Thank you so much for joining me. Firstly, you've been at a briefing at Corryong today. How is the community there faring?
Okay, so Karen, hello. Yes, I'm on my way back from Corryong now. There were around 250 local people gathered for that meeting. Most of them are feeling very tired. They are concerned largely now around recovery. They've had significant stock losses, fencing losses. There's issues with water quality, and they're waiting for restoration of power. Telecommunications came back on today, which was fabulous, and some of their health services are being restored tomorrow. So that's good news, but there are still very active fires around them and still many concerns.
Just with the power there, do we know when it's likely to be restored for some of those areas?
Well, incredible effort actually from AusNet. They brought in a crack squad of line people and assets. They have around 200 poles to replace. That will probably take them around 2 weeks. But they are optimistic that the main power will be restored to Corryong in the next day or so. But it's a huge job, and of course there's power lines down on the New South Wales side of the border as well.
We hear much about the impact from these bushfires in terms of tourism particularly, but it's also some really large agricultural industries in your electorate particularly. What sort of impact has been felt there?
Yeah, look, this is an electorate that will suffer across all fronts. So a significant agricultural industry here. As I said before, significant livestock loss, and the pasture that feeds that livestock lost. Dairy farming, beef, cattle and sheep. But also, really importantly, a very major wine industry up here. And while we haven't had significant loss of vineyards, what we have is persistent smoke and the potential now for smoke taint on this year's vintage. So that's a real concern to us. Tourism, absolutely significant here. And last weekend, there was a mass evacuation of around 35,000 tourists out of our region. The Alpine Shire alone, which is a small shire around Bright, Mount Beauty, Myrtleford, those small towns, estimate that currently the loss is around $90 million in tourism and business loss.
$90 million, it's certainly no small amount, particularly for a small shire like that. Just on that smoke taint issue, what have you been hearing from the winemakers in your area?
Concern, mainly, and there's a workshop that's happening this Wednesday in Millawa, and the vignerons will be coming together to discuss what likelihood there is of that and to work through that as an issue. But the concern is that if this smoke persists, and right now there is thick smoke in the region, and of course, as I said before, there are going fires all around us, particularly up in the Alps, and indeed the fire that has been in the Corryong area is now joined with the Tumbarumba fire, so that smoke keeps coming down from that area as well.
Helen Haines, we obviously saw from the Prime Minister today, he says he will take a proposal for a bushfire royal commission to Cabinet. Do you believe that's what's needed?
Look, I will be interested to see what the terms of reference proposed for a Royal Commission are. I have some reservations. I think that we have immediate needs for relief across the bushfire-affected areas of Australia, and they're vast. We've had many recommendations in the past from previous reviews, and here in my electorate, in 2009, in the Black Saturday fires, the area of Marysville and King Lake was significantly affected, and of course there was a Royal Commission out of that, and many recommendations that could be applied across the nation. So I'll wait and see what the terms of reference are, but of course, I do have some concerns that we have a lot of Royal Commissions in this country, and we need to be sure that this is an important and effective one to have.
You've obviously very publicly advocated for more climate action. We saw I'm not sure if you saw the PM's interview this morning, but we saw that he was saying that it was part of the government's policy to accept climate change. But do you think that he needs to be doing more to discipline those who may be climate deniers within his government or those who may undermine that view?
Well, I'm really pleased, firstly, to see the Prime Minister absolutely acknowledge the impact that climate change is having on our nation right now. So I'm pleased about that. I was pleased to hear him talk about policy for climate adaptation, and that's crucial. We know that what we're seeing this summer is what we can expect to see again and again in a warming climate. So we must put into action straight away how we are going to cope with that. So there's adaptation, but there's mitigation, and we seriously need to address our role in reducing global emissions. And if there are people in the Prime Minister's government who have issues with that, well, that's for him to sort out. But I think what the population is longing for, and certainly what the constituents in my electorate tell me all the time, is that we want real and effective action on climate, and we want real and effective action around adaptation to what's happening right now and what will get worse.
Just finally, are you happy with the response so far, particularly as it affects your electorate to the bushfires?
Look, what I've seen on the ground in Indi, and I've been out and about amongst it now for days and days and days, is that the state response and the local response has been absolutely spectacular. The amount of energy and expertise and excellence that I've seen in the response to these bushfires is incredible. And now, of course, we have our Army reservists on the ground, and they're providing fabulous backup to our existing services and working really, really well side by side. I think as a government and as a parliament, actually, all of us MPs could take great lessons from the collaboration we've seen in the response to the bushfire and come out of our corners and work together to address climate change now. I think we've learned a lot this summer season.
Thanks very much, Helen Haines, for your time. Really appreciate it.